Okay, folks, welcome back to Shadowlands. Going to talk about Mistweaver, since I've already talked about Brewmaster earlier. Specifically, fist weaving. If you remember monks when they first came out, they were intended to be somewhat of melee healers. They had a lot of abilities that would do healing and damage. They had stances and different things. It was very possible to level completely and not have to switch to another spec. So, and I in fact did that for large parts of my leveling. I think I really only switched to another spec just because I was curious what the other specs were like. So, all through the changes, there's always been kind of a Fistweaver build where you could still do the healing and damage melee aspect, as far as I'm aware, even going back to when they first came out. And now is no exception. Now it's a little easier, I think, I would say, because it's now more of a play style for monks. So there's some abilities and talents that you can take that make it a little easier to play. I found myself in melee range more because of my legendary, which reduces the cooldown on Touch of Death. So I was always kind of running in to use that. I took this because it was the most neutral legendary I had at the time, and it seemed the most worthwhile. Touch of Death works on what your basically inflicts damage based on what your health is. So it's more than a worthwhile ability to have, especially on a 1 minute cooldown. So seemed like it was worthwhile to make into a legendary. Has worked well so far as Brewmaster and Mistweaver now. So I started setting up my talents more around that idea. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves here, I will show you. Not really much has changed as far as the abilities or anything like that. It's pretty much all the same. They really haven't made any changes to Mistweaver. They did add. They did give each spec their own spectral minion, if you will. So similar to the way that Brewmasters have had their Ox that they could call on to help taunt and things like that. And Windwalkers have had some version of the Tiger, White Tiger, that they could call on. I believe it was a talent for quite a while. Now, Mistweavers have the Jade Serpent, which will use Soothing Breath on the target that you use Soothing Breath on. Which is actually kind of nice if you're having trouble with mana or anything like that. If you're trying to do, when I was doing Mythics, you could use this at the start of a boss fight, use Soothing Mist. You could stop channeling, use your mana for something else to heal the group, to do whatever it was you needed to do depending on the fight. And then this was just constantly healing the tank for about 30 seconds, which is pretty good. If you don't have to catch up on healing, you could usually make it through the fight. Or if you needed to wait to use it for a specific part of the fight. So it's not a bad ability, it's just kind of limited. Soothing Mist really drains your mana. Even though it is one of the larger um, abilities you have to heal, the mana cost sometimes outweighs what it does depending on the fight you're in, because then you can't use any of your other abilities, obviously. So I started out kind of with one ability and then started looking around and switched to two. So primarily going to focus on two. Talents really haven't changed. I've taken the same thing I've had talent-wise before. So the first thing I took was Rising Mist. Rising Sun Kick heals all allies with your Renewing Mist, Developing Mist, or Essence Font, and extends those effects by 4 seconds up to 100% of their original duration. So, Rising Sun Kick being one of your larger damage abilities. I primarily use this with Essence Font, which was added expansion or two ago, which just puts a dot on up to 6 allies. So basically, if you're in a party, everyone in your party. So I have seen this take the original 8 seconds and it'll go to 10 or 11, or it will take a 3 seconds that are left and extend it up to 7. So really good for keeping your dot up. Occasionally I will use it with Renewing Mist. Occasionally, mostly Essence Font, and then I will move in to do damage. So all told, I really only have been using 4 abilities with these 2 talents. Essence Font being one, Renewing Mist being the other, and then Rising Sun Kick. So this is what I'll use most of the time. I tend to reserve most of what I do for boss fights. In the case of dungeons, what have you, trash usually is not the most difficult part, depending on what you're doing. If you're doing a mythic, certainly then you can use your own judgment and adjust your strategy accordingly. But typically I've been waiting on for boss fights to use everything. The second talent I took was Chinji the Red Crane, which they changed this. It used to be, I want to say it was, pretty sure Legion, Battle for Azeroth. When it was first added in, it would summon Chinji, and he would just run around and heal your allies. And that was pretty much it. You really didn't have any interaction or anything with him that I can recall. I think you got a little command bar. I don't know that anyone ever used it. Really good for PvP if you were fighting over a base. I can remember doing Battle for Gilneas. If you're fighting over waterworks or something, you can kind of summon. You'd summon Chinji, which would heal for a pretty large amount at that time. And he would just run around and heal. You could put Ring of Peace on the flag to keep the enemy team away. You could focus on your other healers, what have you. He would just run around and heal. Really good. Everyone took him at that time, from what I remember. I want to say they took Jade Serpent statue out of the game for a brief time, or it was like this where it was on a row with something else, because I don't remember anyone using a Jade Serpent statue. Everyone had Chinji there for a while if you were a Mistweaver monk. Now what he does is works with your damaging abilities, so you can actually interact with him now. So your Blackout Kick, Rising Sun Kick, or Spinning Crane Kick will cause him to kick up a Gust of Mist, which is your mastery, which basically heals a target whenever you use one of your other healing abilities. I wouldn't swear to it. It seems like this used to have a chance to work. If I'm to go by what the text says, it's more of a guaranteed effect now. Also thought this was an AoE effect, and I'm not sure if that's me misremembering it or if it actually was an AoE effect at one time. Regardless, that is your mastery effect. So the amount that he heals is based on whatever your mastery's at. So 1,652, and then he heals for 1,652. So it kind of has a cleave effect, which is kind of nice. So the way I was kind of thinking of it was Rising Mist was more your single target, and then Shinji was more of your AoE. Because Rising Mist works with either or. Renewing Mist, Enveloping Mist are more AoE or more single target heals. Even though Renewing Mist does jump, I thought. Yeah, we'll travel to another ally within 20 yards. Enveloping Mist, of course, does not. And Essence Font is your AoE. I tend to use it with Essence Font just because that's what I tend to use the most. I will occasionally use Renewing Mist, though, on the tank. He also will reduce the cast time of Enveloping Mist. So you basically get kind of a free... Enveloping Mist. And as I said, I've been using this on boss fights, so there's usually someone that needs an Enveloping Mist. Whether it's me as the healer or someone else, DPS, tank, what have you. So these together work pretty well. So what I'll do with Shinji is use either Rising Sun Kick or Spinning Crane Kick. Just because for some reason that was just what I started using. I don't remember if it was a cooldown or what. That's just, for whatever reason, that's just what I started using. And that just seemed to work the best in practice. So, as I said, Essence Font, Renewing Mist, Rising Sun Kick, and Spinning Crane Kick. Those are about the main 4 I use. So, if you're having issues with mana management and you can handle the melee aspect, the close range, and using your damaging abilities, this will work really well to help you save on your mana and not run out. Every healing class I've played in Shadowlands has had some sort of mana issue. To the point where I've actually leveled alchemy on a character just so I could make the mana potions. Besides that, it's just kind of fun to do something different. Mistweaver has always been one of my favorite healers to play. I've logged a lot of time in PvP, especially. This was my only Horde character for a time, so anytime I did anything on the Horde side, I was doing it on my monk. So, just being able to do something a little bit different. Everything still works exactly the same. If you do have to be at range for some reason, you're not really losing a lot. You're not going to do a lot of damage anyway. At close range, that's not the point. It's still mainly focused on your healing abilities. You're just doing a little bit of extra damage on top of that. So, according to the damage meters that I've had when I've went into a dungeon, you're still going to have fairly low damage, but that is not the point. The point is to keep your dots up and refresh their durations and things like that. So, you are helping by doing enough damage to prevent more damage from the boss. As I said, that's when I've typically been using everything. Um, but you're not gonna. It's not disc priest. You're not gonna end up being basically another DPS. So it is kind of a as somebody who played disc priest first and now has now is playing more with a fist weaver setup. It is kind of a little bit like a melee version of that. Um, Although that is not its intent, so it's not quite as flushed out as Dispriest is. Um, and yeah, so there you go, folks. These two work really well. You don't necessarily have to take Shinji. It's probably worth mentioning. I did have Jade Serpent Statue for quite a while. It works. Jade Serpent has a weird interaction because it does kind of the same thing Jade Serpent Statue does, just on a shorter duration. So I don't know what the I guess they just, it was one of those things where they just wanted to give like all three specs their own kind of flavor ability. So um, I'm not terribly sorry to lose Jade Serpent Statue. Um, Used it a lot back when monks first came out. Having to continuously place it down though was a bit of a pain, especially in PvP and dungeons. If you're in anything where there's high movement, you don't want to have to be putting something out that is stationary. Um, there is a reason they did away with the soul or light well for priest. Clicking aside, there was still a reason they got rid of it. So Shinji, I think, is a more than reasonable alternative. Rising Mist is what you're going to use most of the time. Get the most benefit out of. Works really well, really simple. As long as you're using Rising Sun Kick, you'll get quite a bit of benefit out of this. Yeah. So there you go, folks. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope that was helpful for you. And thank you for watching.